very good evening to you, and thank you so much for joining us on this edition of Spectrum, coming to you live on Radio 1 FM 90. We're broadcasting from the Central Building, which is the home of this radio station, live on our website, www.radio1fm90.com. You click on the icon with the word Listen Live. We are also live on the different radio listening apps, which you can obtain from the apps of your smartphone. Well, you download, look for Radio 1 FM 90, and as long as you have an internet connection, you should be able to listen to us from anywhere across this globe. Do share with us your thoughts via the WhatsApp line 0703-090-090. It might be a question or comment, and we will be, responding to those issues. The panel of two experts who are with me here in the studio will be responding to your questions or comment. Today we'll be making sense of the presidential inauguration speech. Well, President Museveni has been sworn in today for what some people are calling the seventh time. I don't know whether it's the seventh time. If you calculate, that makes it 35 years. He has been in power for 40 years. He's embarking on the 45th year. So I think in terms of being sworn in, it's the seventh term. If you add on the 10 that he served under the movement system, but he was also being sworn in, I think, the seventh elective term. I think that's what most people are looking at. The ceremony took place in Kololo, attended by several dignitaries, including heads of state and representatives of different governments. And the president talked about a number of things. Mainly, two came out. No more time for sleeping for Ugandans in terms of wealth creation, but also no time for corruption. Now, corruption has been one of the biggest challenges that has bedeviled the NRM government, and the president himself has come out to clearly accept that it is a challenge that needs to be tackled. There are a number of other issues, including wealth creation, and he said people who follow the advice of government, the families that will follow the advice of government, will actually come out of poverty. And he shared examples of some people that have succeeded using those videos. You remember those famous videos he used during the campaign trail. So I have two guests here in studio to reflect on this inauguration speech. Dr. Patrick Wakida, PhD. He's an economist, also MP-elect, Kabweri constituency. We thank him for turning up today. Thank you so much for honoring our invitation, Dr. Wakida. It's a pleasure having you on Spectrum.
Thank you, Kenneth.
Also in studio, Dr. Fred Muhumuza, PhD, Senior Economist and Director Economic Forum, Makerere University Business School. Thank you so much for joining us on this edition of Spectrum, Dr. Fred Muhumuza.
It's a pleasure to be back here to discuss important issues and get to hear the views of Ugandans. And please, Ugandans, give us your views as well. We are waiting.
And the number is 0703-090-090. And I want to begin with you, Dr. Fred Muhumuza. We've been here before to discuss issues to do with development and governance and so forth. We now officially have a new president. Time for elections is over. That's what we're told. It's time to begin delivering on the promises made to the people of Uganda. The campaign theme of President Museveni, protecting the gains and then leaping forward into a middle-income status, and we know it's ingrained in the strategy of the tenfold growth. But let's begin with you sharing with us your quick thoughts on the speech by President Museveni.
Yeah, there were a few things that quite touched me in the speech. He presented to us videos of people who have done big businesses. He talked about the jobs and wealth. He talked about markets, why Africa has to be put together to grow markets and compared with the US. So this one of the speeches around the wealth creation agenda and, as you're saying, protecting the gains. Now, looking back from my economics angle, I was like, exactly how is wealth created? You bring different factors of production together to produce something. But for many of us who went to attend economics in senior 5, I always tell my students, economics doesn't change. Right in senior 5 is where it began, and the rest is playing around that nucleus. The questions of what, when, how, and for who. What is it that you want to produce? How do you want to produce it? For whom and when do they need it? Which is the market, really. So at the heart of economic wealth creation is the customer. Who buys your products? And I had two questions that I really want to get into and understand. The people are telling us how much they are earning, billions per year out of poultry.
Trays of eggs.
You don't want to forget who is buying the trays. So literally to anchor this guy's business, the business is not at the farm. The business is, can I make sure that guy who buys the eggs keeps buying them? That guy could be a hawker. That guy could be a border rider. That guy could be a school. Could be a Rolex guy who buys and sells. So you want to look at that customer. How do I empower the demand side of the economy? And for me, Uganda has been looking more on the supply side. But you forget there is the demand side, who buys. And so even as the president was saying, Africa, we know we need a market. We all know that Africa is 3% of the global trade. So literally the trade that is going to get Uganda out into the middle income status there, sustainably, for us to protect this, we have to look into the global markets. 97% of the market is outside Africa. If you look at China, China is export-led. They knew the Chinese were poor people, but they could work, so all they had was their bodies, their brains. They trained that. From the 80s, 90s, China was producing for Europe and America, and now they are producing for Africa. They are looking out there. 50% of the German economy is export. So Uganda needs to get in there. And you begin to say, the president is giving direction. You guys, we need markets. We are doing production now. Some are going to be domestic markets, others are going to be foreign markets. Now, if another 1,000 people went into poultry production to those scales, you'll find eggs now stalling in the market. So you need to be saying, who would take my eggs out there? And before, Mr. Museveni has talked about this, saying when they were growing up in the West, everybody had milk. But there was a certain Indian man who would go there and buy their milk. That guy was the hero of that time. So every time we are discussing economic development, I'm like, we are going to produce, we want to create wealth. Where is the market? Where are these aggregators, the people to take our things to the market? Coffee is now $2.4 billion worth. You don't want to miss out the European person who brings here money, buys the coffee, pays the Ugandan cash, and then the Ugandan expands the coffee production. That's the wealth creation process. So I'm trying to engage my peers where we sit, both in class, the students learning from me, and also in the policy spaces, to say, do we understand the wealth creation process? Because that's Museveni's gist. And the detail of the wealth creation process. How did these guys finance their businesses to move from small places to where they are? So the financing space, Uganda's interest rate of 19%, prime borrower, and people forget a prime borrower. It's not me and you in this studio. Prime borrower is like maybe if MTN wanted some money, those are prime borrowers. The rest of us are borrowing at 30-40%. That is too high for you to compete in global markets. So we need to be saying, how do we finance ourselves? I'm glad the president is bringing in this conversation. Why are we using NSSF money to eat? But in the same space, we are increasing the salaries of scientists, as teachers, RDCs, deputy RDCs, commissioners. Everybody's salary is going up. How are we going to pay? May undermine the real investment that the money should be going into the financial intermediation. So
when the president says no more sleep for Ugandans on issues of wealth creation, what do you think he's implying?
I think
is he going to go into people's households and wake them up?
No, my friend Rama is on record for having brought up something very interesting. The rich cannot sleep because the poor are awake. Every time you hear something out there and you're a rich man, they're either breaking into your car or into your house, so you too can't sleep. But then when the poor can't sleep because they are hungry, they have to look for some things. So, team no sleep, what is keeping us awake is the next question we should be asking. Because we might actually be awake because the poor are not as sleeping. Now if the rich are also not sleeping, it's a time, can we be awake because we are working? Shifts. When I was studying my degree in Europe, because during the day I would be studying, but I needed some money to buy a laptop. So I had to work at night. So I was team no sleep. During the day, I'm working. During the night, now there is a town in Alaska, just to close it off. They have had the last sunset today. For the next 84 days, there's not going to be any sunset. It's going to be the sun shining. This is summer for them. The next sunset is in August. So team no sleep. Are you awake because the sun is up? and you are doing something, or you are just awake because you have nowhere to sleep.
All right. I'll be coming back to you. There's that issue of corruption, which moves hand in hand with our development agenda. Yes. The president finally coming out and saying, but some people have said he has been saying it.
No, we have heard it before.
Let's go first to Dr. Wakida. Dr. Wakida, I know you were in Kololo to witness the swearing-in ceremony, and therefore you got those words from what they say, the horse's mouth. Let's hear your quick thoughts on the issue of wealth creation, because that's where Dr. Muhumza has pointed us first.
Thank you, Kenneth. Of economic takeoff. We are transiting from what we economics call the precondition to take off. That stage is very, very dangerous.
Yes.
It is one economist, I think it's Rostos, who gave us the 5 stages of economic development. And the most tricky stage is the stage of preparing to take off. As if I use an example of an airplane, it has already been lit. It is taking off,
and it's on the tarmac.
Every standards must be met for it to stay in the air. And therefore, when you listen to the president, it falls within the government flagship economic plan that was launched in 2023, the 10 growth strategy. Meaning that in order for us to go into that stage, which is the 3rd stage of economic development, the takeoff stage, there are a number of things that we need to do to achieve the growth of our GDP from 50 billion to about 500 billion shillings, so that nobody is left behind. And I want to help the listeners to understand the objectives here is to expand the economy. That's number one. The vision is to position Uganda as a competitive player in the global economy by year 2040. The strategic focus for government now is in 4 areas: investment in infrastructure, enhancing agriculture, promoting industrialization and encouraging manufacturing, fostering innovation and startups. Those are the flagship projects, the 4 which we've termed ATMs, agriculture, commercialization, tourism, and all this.
Manufacturing, among others.
And therefore, it's important to understand the target and the math therein. When you see the president trying to labor, our current GDP is so small, and therefore the objective is to raise our GDP 10 times. All the money available, when you divide it by its population, it should not be 1,039. It should be 7,000. And that's the target for the country. The export goals, for you to be sustainable in that 3rd stage, you need to increase the exports from the current 13% to 50% of the GDP that we have, from 13% to about 50%. You need to go exports from 21 to 50% of GDP by 2040. So I wanted to build this understanding so that you understand where the president's coming from. And I can tell you, if you want to stay in that stage, move away from the precondition to take off and stay within that area, which is the 3rd stage, Professor here will tell you, is called the takeoff stage, where all energies must be in place.
All hands on deck.
Yes. So you need to understand what the president is trying to say, and therefore understand the key initiatives that government is doing in every area. PDM is a flagship for government. The overall objective is that people will be able to start to make something for themselves, so that they move away from complete primary society where we were many years ago, and start to transit into a money economy. That is what government is saying, that the investment of over 10% of GDP is necessary for us to be there. And across all the leading sectors, you need that. So,
Dr. Wakida, someone will say that these things are on paper, like you are articulating them there. But in real sense, making those things work is the issue. And the president is saying no time for sleeping, no kulambala, if I can use one local word that he
you see, one of the challenges...
How do we move in that direction?
One of them is the physical discipline and efficiency. And be prudent in spending. That has been one of our challenges. Prioritization of the few resources. You see, economics and economy moves on the three principles of economics. If you studied economics, we have three basic principles. One, that resources that we have are not enough. And therefore, you must spend it with care. That's principle number one. Scarcity. Principle number two is that because of those resources, you must take choice. That's what we call budget prioritization in planning. So you do not have to go everywhere. Focus on things that matter. While you do that choicing, you should be aware that there are things you are going to leave behind. And economists call it the opportunity cost. Now, everybody must be aware that there is a physical discipline needed and efficiency. There is investment efficiency. Where are you investing? What can it bring? The other day I saw our budget. The consumption budget is almost bigger than the development budget. You need human capital development. A lot of money in this country is spent on experts. They leave my brother Mumza here, and they will go to London. They will go to the US and get these guys, and they carry the money with them.
And they take it back when they're
So you need to start to look at skills. If you are going to go industrialization, you need those young people who are going to work there. So that's a challenge. And when you look at the current budget that we are going to be passing in June, there has been a little bit of thinking.
They are just going to read it. It was already passed.
You must create a business environment. The cost of business should not be high. Those are areas that we are still fighting with. What is the tax to an investor? How much should an investor who is going to create an economy, who is going to expand the tax base, who is coming to create resources for the people, what kind of taxes are you putting on that person? I raised a paper recently on the income tax. For example, you want to go into industrialization and manufacturing. You must encourage investors to come and invest. What incentive matter?
All right.
What are you giving?
Wait, Dr. Wakida, you seem to be talking about the big people, the wealth creators at the top. Let's try to look at the local person. Because
you see,
when the president gives examples of people who are rearing chicken and selling eggs, people are doing all these things, growing mangoes, and he's trying to talk to the local person.
I can tell you.
Can it work?
If you want to create an economy, you must create demand.
Yes.
That is very important.
Yes, because
in Europe, you will hear that there was a drop in consumption. The purchaser reduced on what they are spending. Once that happens,
the economy tumbles.
That's why when you are creating a tax regime, do not focus on production. Don't tax production. Tax consumption. and higher consumers. Now, today we are talking about PDM, isn't it? One of the challenge that we must now start to think is, where is the market? Who is going to buy these things? Because once there is no consumer of my turkeys in Tibuku, of my coffee, of my bananas, the following day I will think about an alternative crop.
All right. Let's go back to Dr. Fred Muhumuza. Dr. Fred Muhumuza, the local person, the person targeted by
scoring. That's strategy.
All right.
So what is our real strategy to make sure the intention of the president is actualized? That is going to be not going to be for the president.
All right. Spectrum on Radio 1 FM 90. We're going to take a quick break. When we return, no time for sleep on corruption. That's a warning President Yoweri Museveni has given. Some people think it's a song. He talked about it the other time when he was in Chankwanzi. He has been talking about it. Kisanja hakuna mchezo. This time, Kisanja, no sleep on corruption. When we return, it's one of the biggest challenges that's likely to derail all these good things that the president has talked about. What to change for us not to sleep when it comes to issues of corruption. Stay tuned, 21 FM 90. Keep your comments coming via the WhatsApp line 0703 090 090. Thank you so much for staying with us on Spectrum Live on Radio 1 FM 90. We are looking at the inaugural speech by President Yoweri Museveni as he was sworn in earlier today for another term in office that takes him to 45 years in power. My two guests, Dr. Patrick Wakida, Dr. Patrick Wakida, economist and also MP-elect, Kabwedi constituency. I was still remembering executive director at Research World International, and you're still there. Also executive director at Stone Ridge School that is located somewhere in Chira. Also in studio, I have Dr. Fred Muhumuza, who is the senior economist and director of Economic Forum at Makerere University Business School. Now, Dr. Wakida, let's now look at the issue of corruption. In the few years that have passed, President Yoweri Museveni has accepted that indeed corruption is a problem in his government, and he has come up with different slogans: Kisanja hakuna mchezo, zero tolerance to corruption, and now we have this one, the new one, no sleep, no more corruption.
I think the president identifies the fact that there is corruption in government. And everybody knows this, that people who are running this country, some of them are actually corrupt. Corruption is very challenging, that if the money is meant for the ATMs and it's not kept for the purpose, the ATMs will be dry. The idea, for example, of doing roads, the infrastructure, which is a stronger component, the investment in power, electricity expansion and spread will be compromised. The investment in STI, science and technology, will be compromised. So it's a very big component, because if you have prioritized the funding, you have prioritized the budget for these ATMs, we will need for Mr. Museveni to give us directions on how to deal with these corrupt people. Because there are evidence where people have stolen. And you see that this road was supposed to have been completed on time, and it has failed to stand. And you see that this money had been allocated for a certain sector, and it has not worked. So a follow-up will be very important. Even PDM at the grassroots, that money we've been receiving, cases where the leaders at the grassroots are actually giving that money to themselves or their families. So the spread across the various people or different households is not being achieved. So I think the president, when he mentions that we are going to fight corruption, I think it's important that this is tackled, because you see, it's money that works. Even when you want to train people, if the money allocated for training and creating those skills is eaten, those skills will not be realized. So yes, it's going to be very important to to tackle corruption, and also to work on the critical enablers and make sure these enablers for his strategy are realized. One of the enabler, and Professor will bear with me, is that you need skills. I've talked about that. You need electricity. I've talked about that. You must maintain peace and stability for you to be able to attract the investors. And you need to start to think about the market, the outlets for the products you produce. The other day I saw STI, for example, Science and Technology. They have manufactured buses. Their capacity is about 10,000 buses. The question is, where is the market for those buses?
Well, some buses have already been put on the streets of Kampala.
You see the local market is good, because then you become self-sufficient. But we need to start to look at the market across Africa and region. So yes, we need to fight this money loss in the form of corruption, in the form of favors, in the form of who gets what, in order for it to spread the economic opportunities to everyone across the country, so that everybody benefits. I have always said that it would be dangerous for me to have Muhumza, from where he comes from, with a per capita income of about 1,300, and where I come from, with a GDP per capita income of about $135. That level of imbalance is not very good. Yeah.
All right, but then you have not prescribed a solution. If the president is talking about fighting corruption, and you agree with him that indeed corruption needs to be fought because of the dangers it poses, what then would be the solution? What would you advise him to do differently?
This country has got all the measures to fight corruption. It's the implementation. You have the IGG, an institution set out specifically to fight corruption. You have the police. Those are the institutions. You have State House Anti-Corruption Unit. The issue is, how do you supervise these institutions themselves so that they don't become corrupt by themselves? A number of times you've seen reports. There are institutions that have been mentioned several times in the the corruption index of Uganda. You know them. You know the individual and the ministries that are highly corrupt in this country. And as the chief executive of a country, he needs to start to think that, how do I do this? How do you reprimand those who steal public funds? That one, I'll leave that to a prerogative to the president himself. He has come out, he has told us that he's not going to tolerate corruption. Remember, he has said this before. But sometimes his statements are compromised by those who implement it. So we want to see something different. How we'll do it different than how he has been doing.
So you think the solution is in empowering the institutions?
These institutions must be checked.
Some of these institutions have actually reported and said that when they go after the thieves, they hide behind the president. You remember that famous statement by Irene Mliagonja when she was IG.
You see, the president knows where the problem is. People have written letters on his behalf on a blue paper. Those who have been arrested, he knows them. The other day we went in some places and he said, I know there are these MPs who were trying to steal. And he called them out. So he knows them. Now all eyes are on him to see how we are going to save the public resources for purposes of the tenfold growth That's important. How are you going to deal with the parish chiefs who are giving themselves the PDM that you have prescribed as a solution at a parish level? How are you going to deal with the chief administrative officers in the different districts, those that receive money from central government and eat it? Because we know them. How are you going to deal with the police that is involved in a day robbery in some places? How are you going to deal with that? How are you going to deal with the permanent secretaries that send money and then ask for money to return? In the Ministry of Education, I can tell you, the other day I did a diagnosis of the performance of primary school in my area, where you have a registered number of students at P1 of a certain number. By the time they reach P7, about 70% have dropped out. From S1, you have a big number joining S1. By the time they reach senior 4, they have dropped out. Do you know why? Because the head teachers, the DOs, and some members of the Ministry of Education connive to create more numbers for purpose of capitation grant. These things are known. Are they not known?
All right. Let's go to Dr. Fred Mumza. Dr. Fred Mumza, we also want to hear your quick thoughts on this issue of corruption. If you think there's something that is going to be different in this particular term as talked about by the president himself.
Yeah, I think Dr. Wakida has just ended on the real point where you want to start dealing with corruption. We have continuously asked, why do we have to wait 10 years to generate a census when you have a parish chief, you have a priest who buries or baptizes whoever is born, and you can put up this system. So from the beginning, I would know how many children are within a given location. So you don't come telling me this village here has 200 children going to school when the census results that I've had are telling me there are 70 children in that school.
Absolutely.
So you must first get the numbers right. And I've seen people, sometimes somebody is on phone and say, I'm in a meeting, I'm in Arua, and he's in a bar in Kampala. So you want the evidence. And that evidence must be generated not by the Ministry of Education itself. Because population numbers is a mandate, really. You can talk of your statistics, but also you have NIRA. So you want to get to a level to say every Ugandan born, we must, within 1 week, at worst 1 month, have them on the register. And we know where they are. It's good for planning purposes. My Chancellor, Dr. Crispus Kionga, Honorable now as well, was saying when they were having a conversation with Castro, many years back, the president of Cuba, he said, every week I receive statistics on my population. And it is possible. That is where you want to begin as you are planning for people. I keep asking, and we're working on this again at the Economics Forum, food security, housing, and accommodation. The president was giving us housing here. That has happened. You want to say 2040, when we are middle-income status, and the population is, say, 60 million, 70 million. Where are they going to be? For purposes of planning their accommodation, their feeding, their education, their health, their transport. So it is good that Ugandans have built houses, but are these the kind of houses that will accommodate our population as we go out there? So the whole point of planning will begin to undermine the corruption. But as long as government officials are going to be sitting and throwing figures around, and the figures can't be verified on the ground, and you have to wait 7 years to discover that somebody packed in another 2,000 students on capitation just to steal the funds, you have a problem fighting corruption. The doctors will tell you the best way to fight cancer, try to deny it the sugar. So we also have to get back and say, in the first place, how much money is needed to do X, Y, and Z? Now, if you can have a unit cost and you put the right money in the right areas, already you have removed the excess. You still have people who want to fly abroad. You still have people who want to have government vehicles. We are saying, in the corporate world, Stanbic has employees. Some of them get 10 million, just like a commission in government. This particular person, his travel to office and back home is in the 10 million. Now, the moment you create a government fleet out there, you have created a haven of corruption. One, on the procurement of the vehicles. Two, on the maintenance of that fleet. Now, if you really want to deal with corruption, begin to address it from the source. You're not going to let your IGG run after the corrupt. There will be too many. There will be a lot of work to chase. Prisons will fill up. Cases will be very hard to prove. Why don't you simply remove some of these pieces of areas where the corruption is thriving? Thank God, I'm very happy my friend at Sheraton, him and his staff found their way to the president's speech. These are policies that literally have helped this country move forward. Remember, these were government hotels. So for me, going back, the gains you want to protect, policy reforms. Liberalize, privatize. Now, you're not going to chase theft in Sheraton because you sold it off and it is doing better than then. You're not going to chase theft in MTN, in Stanbic. But if these were still government entities as they were when Mr. Museveni came in, you'd be having the corruption. So can we list what items should government divest from and let the private sector take them up? Again. Now, we have undermined the private sector and people are blaming the private sector. If government is borrowing at 17% on a 5-year bond, you are the one killing the private sector.
All right.
Because that same private sector, Wakida here at the school is talking about, he was going to come to Stanbic, and Stanbic could not even want to entertain him on their veranda because Mr. Government passed by in the evening, wanting another $1 trillion at 17%. We have killed the private sector ourselves.
All right. Let's now jump in on this one very quickly before we hear from the listeners. One of the things that President Museveni must do now is appoint a cabinet that should support this drive. There's always a discussion there. A technocratic cabinet or a cabinet that is full of politicians. Last time he gave us a cabinet of fishermen. What kind of cabinet do you think we need as a country to push forward this agenda, including the 10-fold growth?
It is very key, as you've mentioned, the cabinet, because quite often you hear government officials saying there is a cabinet decision. So decision is made in the cabinet. One, whether politician or technocrat or whoever it is, must be realistic. You don't want anybody who does not understand manufacturing to be discussing the industrialization agenda of this country. And we're all saying we need industrialization. Now, to many people in government, industrialization means buying a land, and sometimes they have not even developed it. Or if they develop, put a park there, that's an industrial park. It won't move. You want somebody who understands the predicament of a manufacturer today. And you don't have to be, you can be a politician. All we need is, can you sit with the manufacturers and hear them out? What are their pain points? I have met manufacturers right now as we are discussing. Ukraine hit us on fertilizer. The Gulf of Hormuz has even hit us further on fertilizer. It's not just about petroleum. The fellows who are making plastic, their costs have gone up more than 100%. Nobody is listening to that conversation.
Cabinet, very critical in helping the president to achieve the agenda that has been laid out, including the 10-fold growth that you talked about. What kind of cabinet do you envisage? Well, we know it is his prerogative, but...
You see, sometimes commenting on the decision of the chief executive is very difficult. But the president should look at individuals that will help him to achieve this 10-fold growth strategy. Like Dr. Mums has said, you want somebody who understands the industrialization agenda of the country. I have been discussing the predicament of investors. Remember, I've been one of the directors in the Ghana Investment Authority, and every time I met these people, they raised the issue of incentives. I'll give you one very, very difficult position that these people are. Most people borrow from private banks at 24, 28%. As soon as those people borrow that money, you will find 60 or 40% is a working capital. Government will come up and say, you see, you investors, you are very good people, you not pay corporate tax. Corporate tax is a function of profit. and it takes about 5 to 7 years for it to start to
make a
realize
profit.
But government, on a start of a manufacturing or investment, requires you to pay as you earn, of 30% of your earning. So this Muhumuza, a very good investor, starts at a very wrong, preposition. 28% interest.
Excise duty.
Interest. 30% is taxed on pay. 15% is NSSF. You are talking about 70% off in a country whereby return on investment is 14%.
And you have the interest of 25% also as a cost.
Exactly.
In that system.
Yes,
exactly.
So the investor is dry and open from the start. And the government is saying, let's give them an incentive of
cheaper electricity.
Please also don't pay corporate tax because you are making losses. So you need somebody who will understand that concept. That's number one. Number two, you need honest leaders, people who will help you drive the agenda. You need people with a vision of this country in this new cabinet. Of course, as a politician, he needs people who can help mobilize, people with a grassroots support down on the grassroots. Because you see, the objective of every government and every leader is one, to grab power, to keep that power under whatever circumstances. So a mix of these people will help the president to drive this agenda.
All right. Let's now go to the views of the people. I want to begin with this comment from Grace Kabanda, who says, good evening, Kenneth and the guests in studio. President Museveni can't fight corruption. Since he came in power from 1986, he was saying the same, he's going to fight corruption, and unless when opposition comes to power, Museveni cannot fight corruption. Then we have another comment from Joy, who said, let the president appoint a new prime minister, new vice president, and we deserve a new speaker. That's a comment there from Joy. Then we have another comment here coming from Medad, who is listening in from Bukoto. It says, honestly, if I had the powers to stop you from presenting any program of Museveni about corruption, I would. Because it has been his song ever since, and he said corruption grows bigger by day. He's a total failure on this issue. Congratulations to Dr. Wakida, my boss, for being elected the MP. I have ever worked for RRWI before. That is the organization that you previously worked for. Robert Freidstein from Kumi. Good evening, Kenneth, and thanks for the good panel, but I don't think even Dr. Wakida believes PDM will drive the economy to where we want it to go. I implore him to do a research to follow up that money and see its real impact. I think if we remove the cost of higher level education from parents and the cost of healthcare, people will have more money to invest and spend on the economy. Ham listening in from Entebbe. I think we have remained on the runway, still taxing. We won't take off until all these unnecessary expenses in luxury, including handouts and freebies to MPs, stop. As for Dr. Wakida, I wish him well and hope his intelligence won't be clouded by loyalty to his new love, the NRM. Unfortunately, Museveni is still playing the same old record, nothing new. That's Ham listening in from Entebbe. Let's wrap it up very quickly with your last comments and response to these people, because time is not on our side.
I think for me, to the listeners, every regime comes with its own strategy. Many of us, including myself, we've been in the trenches fighting this government and criticizing this government. I would implore everybody to start to think that this is our country, and let's make a contribution to ensure that everybody gets better economically. I have said to everybody who wants to hear that there are places in this country that suffers a dimension of poverty. We need to have interventions. And I think the president has got the goodwill to do so. He only needs people to make sure it works. He has had people who have supported him, but a number of them have failed to support him to the extent of his vision. That's my comment.
Dr. Momza, your closing remarks as we come to the end of this discussion.
We are going to take off, and that's the language of airlines. Ugandans have been discussing...
Even taxing is a language of the airlines. Somebody has just said here that we are taxing.
But Ugandans have been discussing matters of Rolls-Royce. The part they haven't discussed is the Rolls-Royce, the real engines of Uganda Airlines, which is another discussion out there that is costing us dearly. Technically, the planes can fly. Economically, you want to ask. So the team No Sleep must discuss the economics that will make sure the technicalities the president wants to run the takeoff into middle-income status are really informed by the right economics, and we are sticking to the economics even when the politics comes in. This airline of ours is quite expensive technically, and the economics is really distorting, but there are so many other projects that I think the team No Sleep needs to come back and review the entire government strategy of taking us out there.
All right. With that, we come to the end of Spectrum. I want to thank you, gentlemen, for creating time to be here, and the listener for tuning in and contributing to this discussion. Tomorrow, swearing in of MPs will begin. I don't know, Dr. Wakida, when is your you're on Friday? You are in W among the last people to take oath. And we will be looking at that issue very seriously, especially what kind of parliament we need, because also the type of parliament we have eventually also will impact on the economic side, the economy, because Parliament at the end of the day makes certain decisions, including appropriating the national budget, approving loans and so many other things. But until then, stay tuned to Radio 1 FM 90, because the news in English is up next with Miss Josephine Dagano. Thereafter, the Soul Train with BB Jr.